for once and for all, what is a bookkeeping health check and what may firms actually call it?
Okay, so we tend to hear bookkeeping health check. Maybe it's called bookkeeping review, bookkeeping MOT. Essentially, it's different from a general financial health check or financial review, whereby you might be looking at things like gross profit margins, age ratios, current ratios, and so on. It specifically relates to bookkeeping itself. So it taps into the bookkeeping norms. So double entry bookkeeping has rules ingrained into it that we all know about, we all learn when we're training. Essentially, a bookkeeping health check looks at those bookkeeping rules. It looks at the bookkeeping transactions and it says, actually, that transaction looks like it's a bit of an anomaly. It falls outside what we would expect based on bookkeeping norms. Therefore, we're going to include it on this list of issues here as something that definitely needs your review to determine whether it needs correcting or if it's just a false positive. So it's a checklist of specific types of bookkeeping issue that needs to be rectified in one way or the other by the accountant or bookkeeper or the client themselves.
I've never heard it explained that way, because normally what I get is a whole lot of waffle on the lines of, well, it helps us see if our clients' books are clean.
What it actually does, which I know most people want to review, is that they can make up their own minds on how it will help them and or not. But essentially what it does is it takes that manual review work of nominal ledgers out of the human's hands and speeds up the process and allows them to use their expertise after these issues have been automatically identified to determine what they want to do with those problems.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing here, is that I look at accounting and bookkeeping teams as a sausage machine. And what we're trying to do as owners is get more sausages through that sausage machine. And if we spend more time prepping the ingredients, putting them in one by one, we can't get as many sausages through the machine. So in a very crude analysis, which will get me drummed out of the profession, what we're talking about is how to get more sausages through your bookkeeping sausage machine. And your bookkeeping health check starts to automate that. Now, I've got 5 instances of where you could use that to get more sausages through. So how would you use a bookkeeping health check to assess the work to be done for a new prospect? You've got somebody that comes to you and said, Gareth, I know it needs a bit of work. It shouldn't take you too long. Can we get started? You know, what would you do with that?
Okay, so it was definitely a big problem for me when I was in practice, as I'm sure it is for many firms out there. It's that prospect meeting we have. We go in and we try and build up a bit of rapport with the potential client, try and get them to like us, ask a few questions maybe about, how many transactions have you got per month? What's your turnover? Is it likely to change? How many bank accounts have you got? And then based on their words, their say-so, we go away, we trust them completely, and we say, okay, this is what we need to do for you. This is the price that we're going to give you. And then, heaven forbid, a month down the line when we start doing the work, the reality of the situation comes out and we see, well, that bank hasn't been reconciled for 3 years. You've got 5 different loan accounts that you didn't tell me about. You've got 30 different credit card transactions per month that you didn't tell us about. All these things come out the closet, but the client doesn't know what they don't know. At the end of the day, they just give, in that moment, they give the figures that they feel represent their business. And if we're basing our pricing on that, then it's very difficult to get an accurate picture at that early stage, which is where bookkeeping health checks come in. The idea is that, in respect of Xenon, at least, you would plug in Xenon into the bookkeeping package. Within half an hour of that first sync, it would automatically produce this health check, this initial health check for whatever period you want for those potential clients' books. If you've got access before that first prospect meeting or the second prospect meeting, you can take that report along with you and you can quickly have a bit of a chat with the client to say, we spotted these specific issues. Now, this is the severity of these issues. They definitely need addressing. You've got the choice so you want to do it. We can do it for you, or you can do it yourself. Either way, these things need fixing. Maybe you found some tax savings as well there initially, which you can do within packages like Xenon as well. It adds so much value to that initial prospect meeting because you're not just going in and just getting a ballpark figure in terms of the quotation, which you inevitably will be changing down the line, or you should change down the line when the reality of the situation becomes real. It allows you to just add so much tangible information and better quality conversations at that early stages of prospect meeting there.
Right. So I'm just going to, I'm going to summarize this. Is the key problem we have is somebody like me, that innocent, naive business owner that goes, Gareth, I know it's a little bit of mess, but it shouldn't really take you too long. So number one, the bookkeeping health check takes the rosy-eyed views, because clients always say, don't they? Oh, it's not too much. It's very easy. So it gives you the real fact about what needs to be changed. Number two, it then allows you to also go in the meeting, well, the reason you can't do X is because it's lacking there. So it gives you the ability to start to plug straight into value rather than on their say-so. And the third is it means that by the time you get to that new business meeting, you plugged their data into Xenon Connect. Half an hour later, you've almost got your hit list of, do you realize we can do this? Do you realize we can do that? Do you realize whatever? So you can actually price, you can identify tax savings or opportunities, but first and foremost is you can demonstrate your value. As long as you've got the right kind of sales process, but demonstrate your value rather than just going on a client going, yeah, I've got a few bank accounts. Yeah, I think I've got this amount of transactions. So we picked up 2 of the use cases there, assessing the work, pricing the work. So what about the third one? And here is the classic scenario. We got to that 10-month year-end meeting and you're sitting down in front of the client and you want to go and your price for next year is X. How would you use a bookkeeping health check to help you with that repricing an existing client?
So looking at the traditional way of doing that, how I used to do it in practice, it would be, if I did do it at all, I should say, sometimes this sort of thing gets left years and years, and we don't reprice, as I'm sure other people have the same issue, because life takes over, VAT returns take over, year ends take over. I used to go through and look at transaction counts, run off different reports from the bookkeeping ledgers. Takes a bit of time to do, obviously, to do that. And these things add up when you try and do it en masse. So with bookkeeping health checks in your arsenal, essentially you've got a snapshot there of the data quality. So if the data quality has changed from the prior year, because they've got more currencies that you're now having to deal with for that client. They've added 5 more bank accounts and it's more complex to do reconciliations. You also know transaction counts, number of transactions per month. You get that at your fingertips. It's not a case of running off reports in the bookkeeping ledger. It's all there ready for you in specific reports within Xenon that you can just run off, have a snapshot of all these metrics which determine what you will reprice up to based on your own parameters right there at your fingertips. So you can create package bandings. In Xenon Connect, you can create package bandings whereby you could say, okay, well, I've got a fixed package which is up to 100 transactions per month and it's this price. We've got an intermediate package which is up to 250 and so on. You can set those thresholds as bandings and Xenon Connect sends you notification when the client goes above those bandings that they're currently paying for, the package they've currently got in the most recent X number of periods. So you could say every quarter review, for example, you could say, let me know if a client, this specific client, goes above what they're currently paying for in terms of transaction counts, because I need to reprice them. Because it's just that unknown. It's just something that doesn't get done because we know how long it takes to traditionally.
And I think that's a really good point because I hear people going, I wish my bookkeeper would have the conversation with the client that they're now above the whatever, and they moan. The reality is, repricing is an art. That is a technical term right up there with nominal ledgers. Pricing is an art. And if you talk to me about the traditional way, I'm like, that's going to take hours. No wonder I'm just going to do a blanket 5%, and that's if I do it at all. And I think it's a really, really good point that once you've got that automated data at your fingertips, and I know your team will brilliantly help set up anybody that's listening or watching, once you've got that automated stuff at your fingertips, every quarter, if you've got a bookkeeping client, you run off the report and just say, right, where are we with fair usage? And as you say, that month 10 meeting that, if it happens, and of course it should happen, that we've actually got all the data, instead of that 2 hours of looking at it, thinking at it, within 15 minutes, you've already got the data to go into that.
The word trust I've not mentioned yet. The repricing, often clients have a bit of pushback because they don't fully understand why things need to be repriced. Why are they having to pay more? They might have listened to a few words that the advisor says, but they go back home and they say, actually, don't fully understand that. I'm going to have a look for another accountant or another bookkeeper. If you've got a report they can take home with them that backs up and shows them exactly that they've clearly gone over the limit, visually can see that in front of them, it avoids that pushback, that price sensitivity there as well.
And I think I love that point because business owners are very price sensitive right now. And if my accountant comes into me and goes, well, we've got to put your fees up 20%, I'll go, prove it. Or I'll be having conversations. If my accountant's listening, no, I won't. I love you lots. So the next use case is, and I hear this all the time, you do the VAT returns for clients, but you don't do their bookkeeping. And I hear it time and time and time again that the teams, instead of just looking at the transactions and doing that quick eyeball check, they're rebuilding the books again. And that's one of the best places to find an opportunity to upsell bookkeeping is go to your people that do the VATs and go, which ones do you dread each month and why? And normally it's because they're disorganized, so they don't get the information to you, or they've not got incomplete records in and they go, off you go. So how will you use that bookkeeping check to upsell bookkeeping to an existing client?
Great question. And firms get a lot of success for this because it sits there in the middle between the client and the advisor, and it reduces that ambiguity, that grey area of where the bookkeeping stops and the VAT return review or year-end accounts starts. The client doesn't potentially know that they've got bad bookkeeping because maybe as advisors, we've never communicated to them the extent of what needs to be done and what needs to be fixed. So having this quick way of producing a report to say, these specific issues need addressing, who do you want to do it? Are you going to do it yourself? We can provide training for you to provide better bookkeeping, or we can take it in-house and do it for you, because at the moment, you've got potential financial issues totaling £500,000. You've got VAT that you're missing claiming of £300,000 in the last quarter, or whatever it may be. Having the ability to produce that information without bookkeeping health check software would take you days to do. Whereas I don't want to belittle it, but it's a click of a button if you've already connected to the client already to have this starting point for those conversations. When those next client books come into you for that VAT return review and they've done the bookkeeping themselves, if you plug it into Xenon, you run off this PDF report and say, nope, not going to start that VAT return review until you hit at least 90% health score. These are the issues you need to work on. What do you want to do about it? Who's going to fix this?
And even better is when you have that conversation is, we can fix it for you, but it will cost this much.
Yeah. And it's being tangible about that.
And I think there's a really, really important point here is the firms that do it this best, it's a leadership strategy. It's not a haphazard. It's right. We want to be getting the bookkeeping, the year-end accounts, the tax return, i.e. the basic full load of compliance. We're not talking cash flow forecasts. We're not talking anything sexy like business plans. We're just talking about the full load of compliance, which for most businesses that are over 100K is at least a £3,000 client, maybe even a £3,500, £4,000 client. And this seems to be the utopia, fine, get your £3,000 client type stuff. But most businesses do not have a strategy for how we're going to do that. And most firms start off by winning what I would call the minimum viable, which is year-end accounts, personal tax return, and not much more. But they don't have a workflow to then get them up from that to what I would call full fat compliance. And it's really simple, is if you talk to most business owners, they go, yeah, of course I'm doing the books fine. I put all my invoices in and I put all my expenses in. And then because I'm organized, I check them off on the feed. And most of them think they do a good job. And I've hung around accountants and bookkeepers and they go, well, what about prepayments? What about accruals? What about rounding errors with currency, which really annoyed me, by the way, when I was doing my own books. And people look and they go, oh, is that part of the job? And one of the things you can do with a tool like Xenon Connect, without it becoming an industry in its own right, is make the invisible visible. What are you actually doing? And most business owners think they're doing a good job, whereas if you ran them out of a quality check out of 10 for their bookkeeping, it would be more like a 5 rather than 10. And actually, as a leadership, part of your strategy is to educate your business owners that they need to get their bookkeeping up to a 9 out of 10. And use it, as you say, using the bookkeeping check that Xenon Connect provides. You've got that report at your fingertips. You've just got to use it and book those conversations in. And I'm a great fan of Guy Robinson and Zebra Accounting. And that's literally what they do. New clients, we're going to sit down every quarter. That's into our fee. That's a non-negotiable. We'll go through your bookkeeping. And there comes a point where we prove to you, yours is crap. We need it here. Are you going to pay with us or do we find you a new accountant? They are that brutal. That's part of the reason why they've grown a very profitable firm and they're very, very well respected in the industry. So the last use case for a bookkeeping review or health check is, how would you use it to make the year-end accounts work smoother? What would you do?
So the idea is that traditionally, if we're doing the year-end only, for example, then we tend to do all the tidying up at the year-end. So maybe the client's not paying us for bookkeeping throughout the year. If we have got them onto regular bookkeeping and we've got a health check connected like Xenon Connect, then you can front load that restorative work, that reparatory work throughout the year. You don't have to have that bottleneck at the end of the year when the client gives you the last few records that you're missing, and perhaps you haven't started the whole year-end job because you're missing a few things. If you're correcting repairs that need to be capitalized throughout the year as they appear when you're naturally working on the clients throughout the year, when you're doing VAT return reviews, for example. If you're writing off bad debts throughout the year, not just at the year end and having to do that year end review only, if you're correcting those mismatches whereby there's spend items gone straight to nominal codes that should have been allocated against bills because they've been detected throughout the year, then your year end, I'm not going to say it's going to use the word it's a breeze. It won't be a breeze still, I'm sure, because there's always that element of year end adjustments that are needed. But that stress of having no time to do anything other than what you specifically need to get done at the year end, and that feeling that we have every year whereby we know it's coming, we know there's going to be issues, we know we're not going to have any social life between October and January 31st, there is an option to actually front load that, a lot of that work that you do at the year end, if you think about it, throughout the year with regular bookkeeping and restorative work.
It's a facilitation challenge, but this is what I call a leadership issue. Because too often in the profession, we have what I call a month-end, quarter-end, year-end mentality. I'll wait until I get past the month-end, quarter-end, year-end, and then I'll do the checks. This is a leadership issue. We also kind of see accounting over there, bookkeeping over there, never the twain shall meet. And what we do when we often quote for a client is we go, right, how much for the accounts? Boom. And we put most of that pot into the accounts because the accounts are where it's at. Whereas actually, if you shift that to actually the accounts job is something that we're doing every single month, making sure that we close the books each week, we close the books each month. By the time you get to month 11, all you then have got is 1 month of processing. You've got to check your bank statements match up. You've got to do what I would call those due diligence that you've got to do. And then once you've done that, you've got a clean trial balance. You've been doing all those bits and pieces that throughout the year, your year-end job tends to be more like 2 hours instead of 3 days.
And your tax planning conversations a month before the year end become much more meaningful because you've got much more accurate data to make those decisions on as well.
And the other thing is you can get an outsourced team to be running these checks for you. You know, it doesn't need to be, I've got somebody in the UK. You can have an outsourced member of the team that is running those checks every single month, giving those queries every single month to your team so they can be talking about it. You know, we talk about the utopia of having a subscription service. This is what a subscription service is we're not leaving that until quarter end. We're not leaving year end until normally 4 months after the year end, we get around to going to the clients, go, oh, we need your information, please. And then we get into the absolute stress. This is about a leadership issue of thinking of this as an ongoing task that accounts and bookkeeping are one and the same. And then it becomes much easier, doesn't it? But what do I know about this stuff? So very quickly, we talked a lot around how do you really get the juice out of a bookkeeping health check. We've talked about assessing work to be done, pricing work to be done for a new prospect, demonstrating value in your new business meetings with that prospect. We talked about how to use it to reprice an existing client and also how to justify your reprice, how to use it to upsell bookkeeping, but also how to really shift your firm's mentality into this isn't year-end work, this is month-end work every single month. So you are obviously bought into the idea of these health checks as regularly as possible. How do you get your team to see the value of them? Because we can put them into the workflows, absolutely. But how do you get your team to see the value and do them? Because what often happens is we got busy, so we stopped doing them. Well, in your view, how do you get the team to do it?
I think the issue is sometimes that firms feel that it's not broken. What they currently do is not broken. They throw human time at finding these issues, essentially. And that's just how it's always been done. There's that expectation that profit margins in a firm will always be the same. You know, you might have 33% staff, you might have 33% other overheads, 33% profit. That's just how it's always been done. So therefore, that's what we're aiming for. But the reality is, if there's tools there that help you to save time in correcting those issues for work that the team probably don't want to be doing, they don't want to be searching through pages of nominal ledgers looking for these issues. It's easy to spot them when you spot them, but it's the time it takes to do so. But if you can have a system that automatically pulls these out, it saves so much time. And obviously that frees up that team member for doing whatever else you want them to do. It might be advisory. It might be take on more clients. It might be work 4 days instead of 5 a week. Whatever it may be, it's just taking a step back and having a look at what's life like at the moment. Is the team stressed? Not just from your position, from what you do in that firm as either owner or client manager or the individual team member that's preparing the work. Is the team in general stressed or is everybody happy? And if they're not happy, is there something about their system flow, the processes that they do that could be improved to make them happier so that everybody's happier and the profit, the business can obviously be increased with a happier team then as well.
Brilliant. I love that. It's about what's in it for the team. And I'm just going to say something. So that model of a third, a third, a third, for every pound that we get from a client, a third goes to wages, a third goes on the cost of running a business, and a third is profit. With the cost of wages of a decent bookkeeper, that model is blown out of the water. Unless you've got, in my experience, either an offshored model or you've got a compliance factory where you are really efficient. And as soon as you get above 3 people, you're looking at 50% on wages. You're looking at more like 50% on wages, 30% on, the fixed costs of running the business, and 20% profit if you're lucky. So anything you can do, let's go back to the sausage machine. Anything that you can do to put more sausages through that machine, given the how much wages are now, you've got to do that if you want to grow and profitably scale a business. So Gareth, how can people get in touch with you if they're like, I need Xenon Connect now?
So I'm on LinkedIn, as everybody is. So Gareth Salomon, you can find me there. Website is www.xenonconnect.com. Nice and easy. Please do get in touch. Always happy to have a chat. I get more value from the chats I have with accountants and bookkeepers than they do from me. So yeah, please do get in touch. I always learn a lot.
I started this by saying Xenon Connect was one of the top 5 pieces of software that our members love. And I wasn't joking. It's probably top 3. Let's be absolutely honest. I know what they love. I know what our members love. And Xenon Connect is absolutely one of those. It's very cost effective. And we just heard how a really small investment can lead to a massive upside in more profitable new bookkeeping teams. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.